And that jarring cacophony tells you you're back listening to the Power of Three podcast, home of the ill-fitting Doctor Who theme, hence the jarring cacophony. It's also home of hopefully interesting and entertaining interviews, and today will hopefully be no different for you, because today we're taking a look at one of the latest Target novelisations. I'm Kenny Smith, and we're going to be joined by a couple of guests today discussing The Robot Revolution, the novelisation of Series 2/15/40, whatever it might be, looking at the opening story by Una McCormack, The Robot Revolution. She's done a novelisation based on the BBC television adventure by Russell T Davies that's introduced us to Belinda Chandra. As we take a look at the cover, which has been created by Dan Lyles, we can see one of the robots with a big hand, and it's going around Miss Belinda Chandra, who's holding a star certificate in her hand. In the background we can see a spaceship against the blue and black starry background. We can also see the Doctor's there with his shirt sort of falling off, and in the background is part of the city as well. And of course we can also see the little cleaning up droid as well. So it does give us a good impression as to what's in the story. There's at least two robots there, so yeah, we can see that there's something going on. The back cover blurb has to tell us, what if the story of your life is written in the stars? Belinda Chandra grew up longing to travel, but never imagined rocket ships would be part of the deal. Abducted by killer robots and taken to a strange planet, Belinda must join forces with the Doctor to put right a revolution that might just be her fault. Reach for the Stars is the 15th Doctor and Belinda Chandra, as played by Ncuti Gatwa and Varada Sethu, rock each other's worlds for the first time. This novelisation of Russell T Davies' script comes from best-selling tie-in author Una McCormack, and it's been published by Target, an imprint of penguin.co.uk, and is available in the UK for £9.99 or in Canada for $21.99, and of course is available in other territories, but you'll need to find out how much they cost. So before we begin, let's hear from the man who was the editor of this book, who commissioned Una to write it in the first place. Let's let him introduce himself right now.
Hi, I'm Steve Cole. I'm the editor of the Target books from BBC Books. Una McCormack handled the Robot Revolution and was epic in the way that she just really got inside Belinda and Alan's relationship. It was so much fun. It's so much fun when you can edit a book and you're not leaving a single mark on the pages for many a time. There were, because it was expanded a lot, we had to spend some time checking that everything matched up with what was on screen as well. But that was a good fun one.
As ever, with new series books, the audiobook's released concurrently, and this one's no different. And we're now going to hear an excerpt of The Robot Revolution, which is read for us by somebody whose name we've already mentioned. Yes, we're going to hear now from the one and only Varada Sethu, who's going to give us the opening 5 minutes of The Robot Revolution. And this clip comes to us courtesy of our friends over at BBC Audiobooks, and we'll give you more information on how to order it later on. Over to you, Varada.
Chapter 1. Written in the Stars. Do you believe in destiny? Do you believe in fate? Once upon a time, in Croydon, a little girl was born, surrounded by people who loved her and wanted everything that was best for her. There was her mother and her father, and one of her mother's aunts, Manju, who had her own thoughts about how you protect a little girl. When the baby was 6 days old, Manju came to see her and, with a makeup pencil, she drew a little dot on the baby's forehead. "On the 6th day," said Manju, "we place the Kala Tikka on the child, to ward off evil and keep her safe." Mum and Dad looked at each other over their beloved baby girl. Her dad winked, and her mum smiled. They didn't believe in fate, or destiny for that matter, but they did love Manju Babu, who was getting old and deaf and perhaps a little odd, but who loved them very much in return. Which was why, when the baby was about a month old, Manju was the guest of honour at the baby's naming ceremony. Belinda Chandra, that was the little girl's name. All the family had gathered to celebrate their new member, and it had been a delightful party, full of love and character and memories in the making. But now the guests were gone and only Manju remained. Manju and the tidying up. Manju was here for a purpose, which was not to do the washing up. Among Manju's many talents, she was the family astrologer. She was here to give the Jadagam, her predictions for the child. Lakshmi sat cuddling the baby. Belinda had, she thought, coped with the busy day very well, cooing and smiling and being the most beautiful of babies. She had the Kala Tikka once again, this time on her tiny cheek, and there was a black string tied around her midriff. "Belinda, Belinda, pretty little Belinda," said Manju, tickling the baby's chin. "Does she cry?" "Like a thunderstorm," said Lakshmi, who was by now feeling very tired. "She's so loud." "That's a good sign," said Manju. "Make yourself heard. Ring like a bell, Belinda." She drew some papers from her capacious handbag and unfolded them carefully. They were handwritten, like a letter, although if you looked more closely, you would see that they were covered in symbols and pictograms as much as script. "I spent a long time over this, darling," Manju said. "Back in the old days, I'd write it out on a palm leaf, but the modern world rolls onwards, ever onwards." She snorted, as if to pass her opinion on the ever-onward rolling of the modern world. "Still, I think this Jadagam is really very good. Quite striking." Lakshmi, who was thinking about the dishes that needed washing and the mess that needed tidying up and the many small but constant and repetitive tasks that surrounded taking care of a newborn baby, suppressed a yawn. "I'm not worried about her horoscope. As long as she's healthy, that's all I care about," she blinked tiredly. She really hoped Belinda was going to sleep for more than an hour tonight. She really hoped that she was going to sleep for more than an hour tonight. A wind brushed gently through the room. The curtains drifted. So did Lakshmi, half listening to Manju Babu muttering over her papers. And then, all of a sudden, "What?" said Lakshmi. There was a man, standing there, right there in the middle of the living room. A very handsome man, yes, and he looked as surprised as Lakshmi felt. They stared at each other. "What?" he said. "What?" said Manju, looking up from her papers. Lakshmi blinked. The man was gone, as suddenly as he'd appeared. "I thought," she murmured, "there was a man." "Speak up, darling." "There was a man," said Lakshmi, "in this room." Manju didn't seem particularly interested in this news. The Jadagam was her interest, and she did not intend to be diverted by stories of disappearing men. "That's nice, dear," she said absently, and tapped the paper she was holding. "As I was saying, the Jadagam, the prophecy for your child is remarkably straightforward. It says, she will travel. I've never seen a fortune quite so strong, but that's what it says. Your little girl is born to travel." Travel, thought Lakshmi. She had come all the way from Kerala in her childhood, all this long way, here, to Croydon. In my opinion, it's more than a little overrated. Still, she held Belinda tight, as if worried that somehow she might slip away.
Thanks once again to BBC Audiobooks for allowing us to have that excerpt. And out of interest, it was produced by Morrison Ellis, with sound design by David Darlington, with executive producer Michael Stevens. It is available on CD if you're somebody like me who likes physical media, and you can get it for £19.98 from all leading retailers. If you're looking to get a digital version, then you can get that from all the usual places. You can get the digital version for £14 from a variety of places such as Apple Books, Google Play, Hive, Kobo, Libro FM, Spotify, and even Xig Xag, which I'm presuming is pronounced zigzag. I'm old, I don't know these things. I'm not cool, I don't do downloads. I don't have Spotify. Anyway, why don't we move on? And we're now going to hear from the noveliser of The Robot Revolution, a friend of the podcast who we're always delighted to have back.
Hi, my name is Una McCormack, and amongst other things, I am the author of the target novelisation of The Robot Revolution.
Now, Una, I think it'd be fair to say that you're probably the queen of the tie-in novel. You're, after all, an international best-selling author. But would it be fair to say that Target books were the first licensed tie-in fiction that you came across?
Yeah, I think that's almost certainly true. The only other thing I can think of is David Bischoff's adaptation of War Games, which I absolutely adored. But I suspect I was reading all these things around about the same time, and probably I got to the targets a bit earlier just because they were pitched a little bit younger. And I suspect I was probably I probably got into Doctor Who around about the Five Faces. I mean, it was always on telly, obviously, but sort of actively going and reading stuff. It was probably Five Faces of Doctor Who. So like everyone else, and I've got a very clear memory of this, cross-legged in the library, in front of the shelf full of Terence Dicks novelisations, kind of working my way through those. So strong memories of that. Must have been 8 or 9.
Yeah, I used to go around the library and gather all the Doctor Who books and put them together in chronological order, not bothering about the Dewey Decimal System and authors and things like that. But I'm sure I'm the only one who ever did that.
I can guarantee it. Not even I was that nerdy, but I'm sure the librarian was used to you.
Yeah, they never did tell me off not to do it. But
well, they probably, if you'd gone back and it was still like that, you would have been disappointed, wouldn't you? You would have been able to sort them out. So,
very true.
They're doing you a favour.
Do you recall the first one you bought, or do you have any particular favourites that you remember reading?
Oh goodness! See, I don't think I bought them. I think I read library copies almost entirely. But I think the one that's so I always get these titles muddled up. So sorry about this because I'm just getting older. It's after lunch. It's the Pertwee Dalek story with the cheese and wine. Yeah.
Oh, Day of the Daleks, yes.
Thank you very much. I get my deaths and my days muddled, and I think it's that one. And I think it's that one for sort of the same reason that I really loved the War Games book, which is that it opened up vistas of stuff that wasn't happening on screen. So it kind of not that I'd seen it. Although I mustn't have, because I think it was the story going out the week I was born. You just got a sense of there was stuff that wouldn't have been on screen. And so you were getting an extra depth to stuff, and I really liked that. And Terence Dicks is really good at that, really good, obviously, and really good at doing that efficiently. And the same with the War Games book. I knew the film and I'd seen it a couple of times, and I was going, oh, not only is there kind of new material, but I'm getting the thought processes of the people doing that, which obviously you can't do on screen, but you can do in prose. So those would be my favourites. And then later on, when I was buying them, it would be something like the Curse of Fenric, which I think is a kind of masterclass in what you can do with your own story, or just I think the readership has altered slightly, hasn't it? It's got a little bit older, as well as being kids. So I loved that one as well later on.
So, of course, you've written numerous original works of Doctor Who fiction in print and on audio. So then, of course, you get the call to say, do you fancy doing a Target book? What was your first reaction?
Well, about bloody time. No. How long does what does a girl have to do? No, I was obviously, absolutely, they don't, they don't hand these out like Smarties, and everybody, I think, it's the next best thing to get to do a script, isn't it? And obviously Russell is too busy these days to do his own novelisation, so it's nice for some of us to have a crack at the whip. Now, I was really, really delighted. I mean, yeah, it's what we all want to do, isn't it? And if you've read them as a kid, or sorted them chronologically, or sat in the library, then to get asked to do one, you really feel like, oh wow, I'm like someone's Uncle Terence, So, yeah, absolutely thrilled, obviously.
Yeah. And was Robot Revolution the first one you were offered?
Yes, I think they'd sort of, I think it was a case of, here's the one we'd love you to do. And I was like, that's great, fantastic, season opener. That's going to be really good fun. There's going to be scope there. So yeah, it was a case of, we'd like you to do one. This is the one we'd like you to do. And I think they picked for those three, I think they picked the right people, didn't they? James has got something a little bit more off the wall and Gaussian, and Gareth has something science fictional, and I get a big farce.
So what was the preparatory work like? Were you given the script? Did you get a chance to view the episode in advance?
Yeah, so I viewed the episode, and also I got a version of the script that had slightly more material in it. So everything that we saw on screen was there, but there was extra stuff. There was stuff at the beginning and the end. So there's stuff that begins my book with sort of Belinda's horoscope, and that's all in the script. So there's those little bits and pieces that just I assume for timing, I assume for timing actually didn't make it on screen. And then, yes, I had access to that episode. I watched it through a few times and made loads of notes, because what I'm really bad on is description and remembering. So I needed to, I would forget what colour the robots are, that kind of thing, So if I didn't make loads of notes, I'd be going, oh shit, were they red or were they yellow? So I had to make sure I had pretty good notes on that kind of thing, because it's just the kind of thing I forget. I'd remember voice or performance, but not kind of visual detail of really quite obvious things. So, for example, I forgot that one character was played by a woman. It's exactly the kind of thing I'd forget. So yes, I had having that visual kind of stimulus really, and just getting the tone of it as well. I think there's no. I've tried to write doctors in the past when I've not. Because if you've done like the first batch of books, it's not always easy to get to see some of the material. Or you're starting to write before you've had a chance to see something. It's really hard to do. So yeah, just great stuff. Great access.
I never thought you'd forget that Belinda was a woman, but there we go.
I didn't say it was Belinda. Naughty you.
I'm just teasing you because I know I can. So what was your process then once you had it? Was it a case of work it scene by scene, or did you pick out favourite moments and throughout the book and then make it all marry up?
So I'm very pragmatic about these kinds of things. I was commissioned to write a 35,000 word book, and I thought, this is fantastic. I've got a script. How much is that already? And that was about 15,000 words. So then I went, okay, that leaves me with about 20k to write, and with it's not the kind of episode that you can kind of bulk up the scenes. Yeah, it's very, very, anyone who's seen it, it's very, very fast paced. So I knew that once I kind of got into the script material, there wouldn't be time to stop and have kind of longers and, people reflecting on the furniture and this kind of thing. It had to really crack along. So I thought the way to do this was to there are two things that I rely on, and the first is to dig deeper into the characters. Now, Belinda and the Doctor, you kind of go, I've got to take them as a given. They're going to be established, but there was loads of scope for other people. So there were all the people on the planets. There were Belinda's flatmates. There were lots of kind of minor players that I could kind of delve into and get their stories. And that's the kind of thing I love from target books. Yeah, the kind of extra stuff. And then the other thing that you can rely on is you take this kind of storytelling voice and give lots of backstory and narration through that. I think of it as like a Douglas Adams voice, almost like the voice of the book. So once you kind of settled on that, once I got into the episode, and you have to stay quite close to what's on screen. You can't, if I'm putting in extra dialogue, it's going to come out. It's got to, and did in some cases, thank you, Una, but we'll take the episode as it is. So there wasn't much I could do with the material there, because it was cracking along. But in terms of backstory and adding stuff and narration, I was absolutely sorted. And then I did that. So I think we're almost a quarter of the way through the book before the kind of action of the episode really kicks off. So I sent the manuscript over to Steve Cole, and he went, Una, I absolutely love this. I've no idea if Cardiff going to let you get away with it, but let's see. and where, and it goes off and, Cardiff, they descend from Mount Olympus and read your book and that kind of thing. And then wonderfully, they kind of got back and said, no, look, we absolutely love this and we're really thrilled with this. So, great job, and let's crack on. And that was great. That was really good. And take out all that extra dialogue you've put into those. So yeah, I was very pragmatic, and I think you've got to be to some extent, but at the same time you've got to be having some fun and invention. So that was the process, really. Yeah.
I'd imagine that there'd be some moments might have caught there's moments where it's a very visual story, and to capture that pace in prose must have been quite tough to do, particularly with towards the end with all the robot action.
Yeah, and not a strength of mine, actually. So it was something I kind of had to. It's quite well. I mean, anyone could. I imagine the scripts are probably online at some point, but it's quite well narrated. Because obviously you're given that as kind of action for the director and the performers, so that was quite straightforward to lift, and that kind of scene and set direction in the script was also giving me the kind of tone of the book. It's a bit of fun. Yeah, a lot of that is there's some dark moments certainly, but that kind of gave me tonal ideas for what to do earlier on. So I think it should all feel rapid and exciting and a tiny bit tongue-in-cheek. But that was my kind of feel, so that's what I went for. But yeah, a lot of that description was sort of there in the script. Thank God.
Were there any particular tough moments aside from the action bits for you?
So there was one bit which I couldn't get to work, and it's Mrs. Flood kind of breaks the fourth wall and kind of goes, "You ain't seen me," right? And I tried to do it. I kind of had like the end of Jane Eyre, reader, I married him. Yeah, I thought, is there something I can do with that? And we tried it, and I just couldn't get that to work. I couldn't do a sort of break the fourth wall of the page. So I wish I'd managed to do something, but it would have been. I think with all these things, you've got to go. Am I just going one? Is it just going a bit too arch? Is it just one joke too far? And I think that was there was a reason we couldn't get it to work, and that it didn't work. You could do it on screen, but it's just a bit arch in a book. So I still, at the back of my mind, in about 5 years, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll go, that's how I could have done it. But there you go. As long as I do solve it, that's the main thing.
Yeah. So tell us about writing for Alan, because he's not a nice man.
No, he's not nice at all. But I think you can't do that as a novelist. I think it's very rare that you don't end up having some kind of, I won't say sympathy necessarily, but part of the reason for writing novels is that you're working out how people tick, and so that means you've got to find the reasons why Belinda would have gone out with him. You've got to find the reasons why he's justified in his own head. You've got to find all these kinds of things, because otherwise you've just got a cipher, and that's a cartoon, and not a complicated cartoon, not a She-Ra and the Princess of Power cartoon, kind of Scooby-Doo villain. So you've got to find what makes those people tick. And the key to Alan seemed to be that he was quite rigid. And rigidity usually comes from being a bit frightened about things, about not always feeling that things are under control, and that if things get out of control, it's quite scary. And that made me think about what kind of, what he must have been like as a little boy. Maybe people weren't really very interested in him, or found the things that he was interested in not very interesting, and all these sorts of things. So I tried to humanize him, because otherwise I think you're not playing fair. I think there's only one, across all the novels I've written, I think there's only one character that I've come away going, no, you really are just a shit. Yeah, and that's Descartes in Deep Space Nine. I've tried, but I just go, no, you're just a nasty piece of work. So I thought Alan, I had to treat sympathetically, not least because Belinda spent so much time. There must have been a reason she went out with him, because she's quite. She doesn't. I think he damages her confidence, but she's confident and self-assured going in, and then that's quite interesting as well, because then you see sort of the damage that a person like that can do to a person like Belinda. So that's how I tried with Alan. And then by the end, I think it's the I think this is in the script. I think he's in so much physical pain that he's not in his right mind anymore. I felt quite sad about Ellen at the end, actually. And the cat. I felt sad about the cat as well.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I haven't let my Nemo watch that episode. It's just been too much for him.
Too stressful.
Can tell that Russell's definitely a dog man, can't you?
I know, it's outrageous. I read that bit. I thought when I did the Target Book Day the other month, I thought, what bit can I read? And I thought, well, it's got to be the bit with the cat, hasn't it? Because that was really contentious. And they all laughed. It was like, you absolute bunch of rotters. It's really sad. So I told them all off. So, but I must have just written it extremely amusingly. That must be the thing. But yeah, no, it's really shocking, the cat. So I thought, well, and I knew it'd been shocking. I knew people had really kicked back. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna have to handle this quite delicately because there will be cat people reading. So I made a bit of a moment of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you say cat people, you don't just mean novice hame. Aha.
I do not mean Novice Home, nor indeed the Kitties from Survival. So,
Or Gary Russell's novel.
Yes, indeed, of course. How could we forget? Yeah,
Absolutely not.
You've levelled up on cat people there, I think.
Very much. So I think there's not. No, I've just been listening to a Bernice Summerfield audio, and there's a giant jaguar man as well, which is also there. No, sorry, it's cool. A river song. It's a river song. Anyway,
yeah.
This is not the River Song podcast. The thing that I noticed is that you've definitely got an absolute real handle on this incarnation of the Doctor. I suppose that you sort of felt that you understand him and you get him, and I think that really came across. And Belinda as well, it felt very, very realistic, true to screen.
Good. I'm glad about that. Yeah. You're always worried that you don't get that right. Yeah, I think. And it's so much easier when you've got you've got episodes that you have watched. Particularly so coming into writing the Jodie book that I did, hadn't been on screen. So I hadn't got into the rhythm of the voice. And then I think we saw some material and read some scripts. And that's really hard. I think if you come into the Doctor just as a viewer, then you get it's much easier to get a handle on rather than thinking, oh God, I've got to watch this to get the voice right. And they are both very, very Belinda, she's so good. Yeah, that instantly you've got that voice, a bit tired, a bit world-weary, a bit wisecracking, very funny, very smart, doesn't take any bullshit. And that was a really good one. And, really, really questions him and gets him on the hop. And then he's got all that energy and kind of enthusiasm and excitement. So I'm glad they sound, it's always got to sound like the Doctor. I think I've said this before to you, haven't I? Mm-hmm. It's got to sound like the Doctor, but it's got to sound like that Doctor. So you should be able to take his lines and any Doctor could say it. But then, you can't imagine Hartnell saying honey or babes, can you?
I'm sure somebody will do an AI version of
it. Oh God, I dread to think. Yeah.
Don't. If you're listening and want to do it, don't.
Yeah.
Just don't. So yeah, it's a very entertaining novel, and I think that you must have done this. There's so much love and care going into it, and I think it feels that way. I mean, what sort of time frame did you have for it?
Oh goodness, I can't remember now. I probably, I think with a lot of, I tend to write quite quickly because I tend to spend time thinking, and and I did have I had 15,000 words of it. It's an absolute gift and an upper limit of what I could do. So it was quite a short writing. There wasn't much writing to do, but I knew it had to be right, if you see what I mean. So that's often more to do with thinking. So that's to do with thinking about structure and pacing and tone and how I'm going to handle what I can put in and what I can't put out. I honestly can't remember how long it took to write, but I suspect I spent a fair amount of time thinking about it and then sort of sat down and cackled my way through. Yeah. But a lot of that will have been thinking about, I'll have spent hours thinking about chapter titles and that kind of thing, and can I do that? This kind of thing, which are, I hope, many of them, I hope people notice they are song titles. So
yes,
I hope people pick that up. Yeah.
Yes, your musical tastes are betrayed.
Well,
There are worse things, I suppose.
I don't like Radiohead. I want to get that clear. That should have been a quote from Marvin the Paranoid Android.
Yes, indeed.
He did a record, and there's a
Don't
line
talk
in
to
it.
me about life.
That's he did a one of the lines in it is solitary solenoid, and I wanted that as the chapter title, but song titles you don't have to pay for, song lyrics you do have to pay for, so we had to put Paranoid Android instead, and because that's the Radiohead song. But actually it's about Marvin, so yeah.
That works. And then, of course, your audiobook reader. That must have been a real surprise for you and a delight.
Oh yes, very much so. I mean, yeah, it's always nice, isn't it? Yeah. No, I always say it's came, but I've been dead lucky. I get really nice gigs, and then there's always extra nice surprises like that, or Kate Mulgrew or David Warner, all these kinds of things. So yeah, it's yeah. I can't complain, can I?
Absolutely not. And it's all packaged up in that lovely cover.
Oh, yes. Again, just all very, very happy about the whole thing. It's all been lovely. So they should definitely have me back to do another one.
I agree.
I
If you
agree.
could pick one, if you could pick a new series story that's not been done, which would you like to do?
Oh, goodness. Now you got me on the spot. Oh. No, I'd have to have a think. I'd have to have a think about that one. No, oh God, you completely got me on the spot. Go on.
Why not do all of Flux in 6 books? So that gives you a whole load of episodes, and you can build it up. There you go. There's a thought.
Yeah, I'd do that. I'd do
Yeah.
Flux, the master plan. Yeah, you heard it here, guys. I'll handle that one.
Yeah. Una, it's been brilliant as always.
Oh,
Thank you
pleasure.
so much.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you as ever. Thank you.
Massive thanks to Una, as always, for taking the time to come on and have a chat with us. And hopefully we'll be speaking to her again before too long about something else 15th Doctor related. But you probably know what that is. It's her upcoming audiobook. As you may be aware, there are 2 other Target novelisations which have just been released. Empire of Death by Scott Hancock and Lux by James Goss. Sadly, neither of them is available to come on and have a chat with us, which is a shame. But we can actually bring you some sort of examples of them for your information, your delight, and your edification. Again, courtesy of BBC Audiobooks, we have some samples from the listenable versions. So we're going to first hear a sample from Empire of Death, which is read by Susan Twist.
Chapter 1. The Same Woman. The end began on a sunny day in a park in Pennsylvania. On the horizon, Ruby Sunday could just about make out the red brick outline of Lincoln University. It occurred to her in that moment that she'd never had much chance to travel the world before meeting the Doctor. She'd always hoped to visit America. Her friend Trudy was always suggesting a long weekend in New York. And now, here she was, on a bench, in a colourful rayon dress and peep-toe shoes, watching the world go by in 1946. She never got bored of that, arriving in a different place at a different time. Sometimes she had to remind herself how it had felt when she first met the Doctor. He'd literally swept her off her feet. Or rather, some goblins had. Rescued her with a pair of intelligent gloves, gone back in time to save her whole life on the day she was born, then whisked her away to prehistoric Wyoming in his TARDIS. A sophisticated space-time machine from a long-lost civilization, which looked like a police box and was somehow bigger on the inside than it was on the outside. Ruby never quite understood how that worked, but what did that matter? She was too busy enjoying the ride. Not that this was a holiday, of course. The Doctor meant business. Ever since their departure from Fine Time, something had troubled him. Something bigger than just that planet and its disturbing inhabitants. It concerned somebody they'd seen there, glimpsed on a screen. Her name was Penny Pepperbean. She'd looked familiar, and with good reason. Wherever they went, whatever the period, they'd see the same cheerful older woman clear across the universe. Her identity changed, and her species might alter, but the face was always identical. Sometimes she'd appear to them in person. Other times she was just an image barely noticed, but she was always present somewhere, simply existing. But who was she, and why did she keep on appearing? Enough was enough, the doctor decided. He selected a location at random, an ordinary day in the 1940s, an ordinary place, and changed into a burgundy zoot suit. Then he sat on a park bench with Ruby, quietly spying, until a figure in the distance caught his attention. It was a man, middle-aged and smartly dressed in a suit and tie, on his way to meet a friend. "That's Paul Robeson," whispered the doctor, pointing the stranger out to Ruby. "The singer?" she asked. The doctor nodded. "Singer and actor. First African-American to play Othello on Broadway. Footballer and activist. Right now, in 1946, he is fighting the fight with the help of his good friend." Ruby followed the doctor's gaze, watching as Paul Robeson approached an older man in his 60s, wearing a conservative grey suit, but with an explosion of thick white hair and matching moustache. To Ruby, this other man looked almost like Albert Einstein, the doctor confirmed. "Say that again," said Ruby. "That's really him." The two men greeted each other warmly, shaking hands before sitting down. "They're good mates." The doctor's smile faltered at a chirrup from the sonic screwdriver. "The point is..." He turned his head to follow the signal. "Her." The doctor pointed out a nanny pushing a pram. Almost every part of her body was concealed, dressed as she was in a thick black coat, matching hat, and white linen gloves. But her face was unmistakable all the same. "Everywhere we go, the same woman. Everywhere in time and space." The doctor discreetly scanned the nanny as she passed. "And right now, she's human." Half an hour later, Ruby and the doctor sat in a diner on the planet Sloog, trying to get the attention of one of the servers. It was clearly a popular time of day, heaving with groups of teenage sloogma, all chatting noisily. Their cerulean skin seemed to shimmer, and tiny horns protruded through their bright-coloured hair. Ruby tried not to stare as she drank more of her fruity skalloo, whatever that was. "Hide-and-ho," interrupted their waitress with an effortless smile. "Hope you're enjoying your tasty bob dogs. We've got pop new shaken makers in boozleberry flavours, only 50 hoff'n-p." "Thankle-dankle you," replied the doctor. "But we're boofy. Have a nicely daddle-do." "And a boofy below to you too."
We could technically have included this right at the start, given that Empire of Death is a story before this, but I thought I'd leave it till later because there's always a twist at the end. Yeah, there's a tumbleweed going past, sorry. Lux has also been given an audiobook, and it's been read by another of the pals of the podcast. It's Dan Starkey. And let's hear a little excerpt from that now too.
Chapter 1. "We're all alone in the dark," thought Reginald Pye. No, that wasn't quite right. For instance, those two teenagers in row Q. They were definitely, enthusiastically, not alone. What was he trying to say? He peered through the window of the projectionist booth out at the quiet auditorium. Not a big crowd for an early evening show. But then, it was a nice evening, and the show had been playing for a few weeks. Most people were biding their time for the new Doris Day, and the Palazzo was having to compete with the television and the beach. The beach was always going to be a problem in Miami. You've got the most beautiful view in the world. Why would you want to see anything else? Luckily, people who lived here occasionally got tired of looking at the rolling surf and fancied an evening in the dark with handsome cowboys and beautiful heroines. Even if they came here alone, they didn't come here to be alone. Reginald hadn't been in a church since Helen's funeral. He'd been in a chapel full of 47 people then, all wishing him well, but none able to reach him. He'd been alone in that crowded room, everyone looking up at him, expecting him to somehow say the right thing on the saddest day of his life. And he hadn't. But the picture house was different. The silver screen always said the right thing. You looked up at it, and it shone. These days, the Palazzo was Reginald's church, and he was never alone. From his church-going days, he recognised the look of the woman firmly on her own. No lingering in row queue for her. She'd come here for a bit of magic and reassurance, a little light in her little darkness. So many of us have that little darkness, knocking around inside our rib cages. The sunniest day on the beach can never reach it, and it grows a little more with each day. In the old times, you'd take it to church in the hope it'd get to bask a little. But now more and more people brought it here, to see the cowboys, and the princesses, and the sheiks, and the buccaneers, and, just for a few minutes, that little darkness would lighten just a little. That's what they all came for, a little glow of light. Apart from row Q, they were making a glow all of their own. But what was the harm in that? They'd all come to see a little beauty, feel a little happiness, watch a little romance. Why, even now they were taking comfort from... Reginald glanced up at the screen. Oh, the newsreel was showing footage of a nuclear explosion. There probably wasn't that much romance in nuclear bombs. All that heat and light, doing nothing more than destroying everything until it got bored. Reginald didn't see the love in that. There'd been so much destruction in his lifetime, it felt like we didn't need more. When he walked to work, Reginald walked. He didn't like cars anymore. He came along the beach. Sometimes he slipped his shoes and socks off, and he walked along the sand, and he looked at the beach and the sea, and he thought, not only will the beach still be here after I've gone, it'll be here after we've all gone. A beautiful sight, designed seemingly only to bring joy to the people who watched it, and it'd be perfectly happy, even if there's no one to see it. Like a film playing forever with no one to watch it. That was somehow sad, but somehow that was just a fact. We're all alone in the dark, even the films. The atom bomb exploded in black and white. A giant monochrome mushroom cloud spreading out from the desert, tearing the air into smoke as it went. A force of pure light and devastation that ripped a hole in the rules of the world. It was a remarkable achievement. Mankind had always built remarkable things, but it tended to go one of two ways. One caveman would pick up a rock and use it to draw marks on the wall. Another would pick up the same rock and use it to beat in someone's head. In those hazy early millennia, it was about even Stevens. Yes, it took a lot of effort to build a mud hut, but it also took a reasonable shift to burn it down. There was even a period where creativity was ahead. Great weapons of war were unleashed against the Egyptians, but no one ever managed to burn down a pyramid. It was argued that the pharaohs had a little help from outside. It was during the Renaissance that creativity versus destructivity drew neck and neck. For every Sistine Chapel, there was a new explosive. Bombs powerful enough to burn a town, or small enough to be fired from a pistol. Creativity left the 19th century feeling good about things. Painting had been joined by photography. For the first time, the image of a living human being could, if they sat very still, be preserved for eternity on a piece of celluloid. Another leap, and humanity had learned how to capture moving images. Just in time to record footage of mounted cavalry being mown down by machine guns and crushed under tanks.
Thanks once again to BBC Audiobooks for those. As we mentioned earlier, there are various places to buy these. You can get them on CD or indeed as downloads, so please go and find them and give them a good home. You know you want to. I'm sure it's a given that you will already have them on your bookshelves, but they are still available, priced £9.99 each in printed form. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave a review for us wherever you get your podcasts from. Always welcome. We haven't had one in ages, and it would be very much appreciated. We're on social media. You can follow us at Power of 3 Pod on Twitter with a number 3 in there. We have a Blue Sky account, which is at Finished Zine, FINISHEDZINE, and we also have a Facebook page. So find the group, come and like us, and see some of the stuff that we'll be doing, particularly at the moment with new adventures going on Mondays, and we're putting up the artwork from the original DWM Prelude by the brilliant Phil Bevan. As ever, we like to play out with a song, and we're not going to break the habit today. Given that when the Doctor and Belinda arrive on the planet Miss Belinda Chandra, there's a fair bit of sadness amongst the machines, I think it's fair to say. And you could say that we're living on a sad robot world, which just happens to be the name of a track from Pet Shop Boys' album, Super. So that's what we're going to play out with. We'll be back very soon. Bye bye.